Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first learning crew of 2026. Woohoo! My name is
Woohoo.
Amy Vale. I serve as the Director of Community Growth and Meetups here at Do Life. Ian Duffy's traveling today and asked me to open our session, and so I have to tell you, I couldn't be more honored to be the one standing in this moment introducing this particular conversation with these two extraordinary women. For those of you who are new to the Do Learning Crew, let me give you a quick overview. Starting this year, we're launching the Learning Crews twice monthly as the core pillar of our Do Life community. These sessions are designed to be intimate, practical, transformational conversations led by the members of our own community and women who are just not talking about leadership, wellness, and professional excellence, but are actively living it, and sometimes through the hardest life lessons that they can offer. Learning crews are different from our traditional webinars. They're not surface level. Nothing we do is surface level here, right? But they're led by our members who are true subject matter experts, not because of the credentials alone, but because of lived experience with deep professional expertise. And so these are the conversations that change how we lead, how we live, and how we show up for ourselves and others. I want to tell you about today's session and why this one hits very close. It's not a dry January talk. As we said, it's not a recovery story. It's powerful, practical leadership conversations about clarity, boundaries, nervous system regulation, and how our habits, the ones that we don't always question, show up in the way we lead. And especially as high capacity professionals, as we are in our industry, that really demands a lot from us. And so if you're sober curious, or simply questioning what's actually supporting your energy today, your focus and your capacity to lead, this session's going to be worth it. Every single minute. I stopped drinking myself in August of 2021, not because I hit rock bottom, just because I started asking myself those hard questions. And so it's one of the most powerful decisions I've ever made for my leadership, my presence as a mother, and my ability to show up fully. So when I tell you this conversation matters, it's not speaking just as a moderator. I'm speaking as someone who knows firsthand how powerful it is to question that narrative. So it's my absolute honor now and my joy to introduce two women who I'm deeply, deeply proud of and proud to call my friends. First, Brandi Marzolino. Brandi is a founder and creator of Empowered LeadHERship, Experience from Women in Dental. She has over 20 years of experience in holistic wellness, operations, personal development. She doesn't just teach leadership, though, she embodies it. She brings grit, grace, strategic precision to every conversation, and she's walked through fire, personally and professionally, to earn the wisdom that she shares. She helps women to stop second guessing themselves, ditch burnout, reclaim their voice, and lead from a place of power, not perfection. And here's a fun fact: Brandy's my twin. Not just spiritually, literally. We were both born on the same day, in the same year, in the same hour. And when I tell you we're connected, I mean it in every sense of the word. Next, my dear friend Kendra, a dynamic, strategic powerhouse in this industry. Kendra has led cross-functional teams, spearheaded compliance programs, transformed clinical operations, and consistently turned data into actionable insights that really drive change. So her expertise stems from that strategic planning, that compliance, evidence-driven decision making, all of it. She doesn't just see the dental industry as it is; she sees it what it could become, and she's actively building that. These two women are not here to preach. They're here to share a conversation about nervous system regulation, clarity, and leadership. And that's both deeply personal and profoundly practical. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for your courage, your leadership, and your willingness to have this conversation. And thank you everyone for showing up today. And without further ado, I'm going to open it up to Brandi and Kendra.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I speak for Kendra as well. We're really grateful and honored to be here with all of you and so excited that you showed up for this conversation. And thank you, Amy, so much for the really kind introduction. I wanted to kick this off with sharing a little video with you guys. So hopefully you have your volume up. Curious if some of you may relate, maybe seen this already, but I saw it today on Instagram and I thought, how timely is this? So I'm gonna go ahead and share this with you. See if we can get this to come up.
Call. I have a call in 1 minute. I have a call in 2 minutes. I have a call in 5 minutes. I have a call in 1 minute. I have an extremely important call. All right, I'm going on a call. Can you come up here? You know Gary from ICN? He's the head of LPR. I've told you this a million times. I met him through Bob at HYG at the LCR conference. Well, anyway, I'm meeting him tomorrow at DKG. Can you have a smoothie ready for me at exactly 9:59? I have literally 1 minute to drink it, and then I immediately have to hop on a call. When would I do that? Look at my day tomorrow. Look at my calendar for this week. Look at my calendar. Can I show you my calendar? Look at my calendar for tomorrow. Can you help me? Can you come down here and quickly? I don't have a lot of time. Can you make me something? This fucking printer. Can you come down here? I can't find words. I don't have words. I had an amazing talk with John at FRP today. Remind me to tell you. Can you, don't go anywhere. Wait a second. Can you make me lunch? Are you going downstairs? Hold on, let me give you all this. I have so many emails. I haven't been able to answer a single email. When am I going to touch these emails? I haven't even touched my emails. Remember, Dave, I told you about him? His wife worked for TTL? It's because you don't listen. Shit, I'm late for a meeting. What is it? I'm about to go on a call. I have a call.
I know you're all not showing yourselves, but by a show of hands, how many of you can relate to that? So Kendra's got her plate right there. So I saw this today and I was like, OMG. I sent this to my husband and I said, I am so sorry. Is this what I am like in real life? Because I related 100% to this. So with all this, and yes, I did watch it at least 10 times and laugh my butt off each time. But with all this, that's like our baseline state. Am I right? Usually. So when we're talking about what we're going to talk about today with alcohol and the impact on our nervous system and even our hormones and how we can lead more powerfully, just consider that as you see this man highlighting his entrepreneurial wife and how a lot of times we are operating at this high level of urgency all of the time. And so I'm going to go ahead and share some slides here with this presentation. And today, obviously, I'm joined by beautiful Kendra. And so for me, I quit drinking again. I did originally quit drinking, geesh, back in early 2000s for a period of time. I decided to go back out and do some more research, as they say. And then I came back to sobriety in 2017. And at the time, I knew up until that point when I had started drinking again, I was really drinking to override how I was truly feeling. At the time, I was undergoing a lot of chaos in my business and in my life. I was also struggling with a lot of dysfunction in all of my relationships, not knowing how to show up for them, being in toxic friendships, relationships, business relationships, really struggling with family dynamics, come from a long history of stuff within my family. And so really trying to figure out how do I relate to my family members in a way that was healthy. And I was also really struggling and dealing with a lot of shame around how do I show up as my true authentic self. Because one, how I was raised, but then also some of you may relate in the dental industry, there is a lot about reputation management and having to look and be a certain way. And I was really struggling with how do I find my place? How can I be my true self and be fully self-expressed and also be accepted in what can often be a very judgy industry? And I was really struggling with that. And so alcohol became a good companion for me to kind of numb out and forget a lot of that stuff. And Kendra, I know for you, 2023 was your breaking point, if you want to share about that.
Yeah. Excuse me. So yeah, 2023 was I wasn't rock bottom, but knew I was headed that way if I didn't make changes. Definitely using alcohol to manage feelings. A lot of therapy happened prior to me becoming alcohol free. And so I knew that I am a person that doesn't like to feel things. Imagine that. Don't like to be uncomfortable, as many of us are. And so any type of emotion, there was a lot of change happening in my life between my career in an area that I was unfamiliar or newer to. So felt like I had imposter syndrome. I didn't have a lot of support in that area. and just dealing with overall anxiety. I also think there was a weight loss happening, and so things transferred from food to alcohol, and being able to recognize that was very important. I felt unfulfilled in my career, as I may have spoken to some of you before. I can be good at many things, but that doesn't mean you're passionate and fulfilled by them. I always said that my one job paid my bills, but didn't fulfill my heart, and that's where I was. And then overwhelmed by being a new mom. I was definitely mourning my career life. I thought that that was over. Thankfully, now my son is 4 and it's coming back. But at the time, I, was feeling like I made the worst decision of my life from becoming a mom. So there was a lot of, if you don't enjoy your work and you also don't enjoy sometimes your home life, it's a hard place, and I was trying to escape. So.
Yeah. So, what is our nervous system in plain English? And so, basically, our nervous system is our body's safety and threat detector. And I guess full disclosure, neither Kendra nor I are doctors, and we are not no scientists, but know enough to know to just play one here on this presentation. But these are just some basic things to understand about how we pretty much work, because I am a firm believer that education and information is power so that we can make informed decisions, right? So we have the parasympathetic part of our nervous system, which helps us with rest, digestion, and overall repair. And then we have the sympathetic part of our nervous system, which is that fight or flight, helps us go, push, perform. And then the vagus nerve, which has been getting a lot of attention more recently, on how to reset the vagus nerve, and because that's kind of considered the brake pedal. And so as we go through life, our body is always asking, am I safe? And if for any reason it feels unsafe, that's where the nervous system is going to come into action and try to help us get to that safe space. And so it's helpful to understand just some of these baseline dynamics and how alcohol can impact that. Because most high capacity people like ourselves live in a low grade fight or flight experience within our bodies. And so when we consume alcohol, alcohol can feel like a relief because it does temporarily shut off that alarm. So again, like that video, which I think was just so classic and perfect timing, is you could just sense the like, oh my gosh, I have 1 minute to eat. Like, hurry up, hurry up. That's the constant fight or flight experience that we're having throughout the day. And then by the end of the day, there's this need to be like, oh, I just need to relax. And instead of heading into some self-care rituals that can help us calm our nervous systems, like breath, we get a glass of wine, or maybe we pour a glass of whiskey or something like that. But the thing is that alcohol doesn't actually regulate our nervous system. It actually just hijacks it or overrides it. So we get that temporary feeling of relief, but it's actually not helping our nervous systems. And so what it actually does is it depresses the central nervous system, and it increases GABA, which is the calming neurotransmitters in our body, and it decreases our neurotransmitters that help us feel excited. So that's why alcohol is also considered a depressant. Even though we might feel hyper or excited in the moment, it does lead to a depressing feeling in the body. And we're going to learn a little bit later why it causes a bit of excitement. But when we first have alcohol, our anxiety drops, we feel more relaxed, and we get that sense of social confidence, and our edges soften. So it feels like a lot of people will talk about alcohol as if it's a social lubricant. But then when alcohol starts to leave our system, our nervous system needs to rebound, and the cortisol rises, right? So that's one of the things a lot of women, experience, and men, but women are actually more sensitive to alcohol. And our cortisol goes up, our heart rate starts to get super chaotic at times, and then our anxiety then increases, and our sleep actually gets disrupted. And that is because the nervous system is having this big swing in a rebound on trying to recover from alcohol. So alcohol disrupts our REM sleep, even if we fall asleep faster. So I know for me that I sometimes would have wine to fall asleep. So I had convinced myself that in order for me to relax at the end of a really long day, I would want to drink some wine. And I did have a problem with alcohol, so I wish I was somebody that was like really empowered and said, I'm going to just eliminate this from my life because it's good for my health. That was one of the really amazing benefits of it. But I did use alcohol in excess. And so a lot of times for me, one bottle would turn into two bottles before the end of the night. And I always wondered, like, how is one bottle like gone already? Is that like, it seems like one bottle for a person is normal. And the whole mom wine culture is a really big thing. And that's something that's heavily promoted. And it's something that saddens me a bit because it's actually working against the health and betterment for a lot of young moms, like the mommy wine culture. And so I would use it a lot to fall asleep. But then I'd feel off the next day and I'd have this anxiety the next day because it does increase the baseline anxiety over time. And then it also ends up training your body to associate relief with an external substance. So what it does is it took me away from finding ways to really try to regulate my nervous system and feel more embodied and rely on alcohol to do that for me. And it also reduced my ability to really understand like how I was feeling. And for example, if I felt really uncomfortable, and Kendra, I'd like you to share about this too, and I know we're going to get into talking about events, but a lot of times if I felt really uncomfortable around people, like say if I was going to an event or even just socially, like social gatherings, maybe I wasn't like a huge fan of the person's house that I was going to, or I just didn't resonate. I would get there and I'd have this anxious feeling, and then I would drink and I would feel more relaxed, and I'd be like, okay, now I feel better for being here. When the reality is, I probably shouldn't be hanging around these people, or it's something about them I don't really resonate with. And I would ignore those signals and use alcohol to override those signals, which would then lead to not only the physical stuff that we're talking about, but then it would take away my ability to be empowered and make decisions for myself, recognizing how I was truly feeling internally. And Kendra, do you have some thoughts on that too? Like using alcohol to override how you're actually feeling?
Yeah, so for sure, I think when events is one place, anxiety is another. And so I think when you talk about that, for me, a trigger was end of day. So it was getting wine, making my meal. Okay, this is my relaxation, self-care, like you said, the mommy wine culture. But then what I was finding is, and it still makes me somewhat sad to this day, but looking at my pictures where I'm excited taking my selfie pictures with my son, and he doesn't look that happy, but in my mind, he was really happy and excited, and not being there for him because, like you said, as soon as you stop that feeling of euphoria for the 20 minutes, and then that anxiety starts coming back. So that short-term relief, well, you need something else to get that relief again. And so it's a continuous cycle. And I did find as I was progressing that I wasn't listening to myself. And one thing that I was really proud of always is that my gut was pretty on point. And so when I found that it was dulled, I did find myself with people that, not that they were bad people, but people that maybe didn't have my best interests at heart. And so not surrounding myself with, yeah, or that too. And so I think that's important, because then you're just continuing to put yourself in a situation that's uncomfortable. So if you're hanging around those people because they drink and they do this. Okay, well, I'm still uncomfortable. That hasn't gone away. I still don't enjoy myself around them. I still have to continue to drink every single time that I meet them. You, you don't have that ability to listen to the gut.
Yeah, yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, and it was cute. The little kid making that noise, I was like, oh, it's like Kendra's inner child, like was saying, get out of here. But we ignore those signals, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we do need alcohol to feel confident, our nervous system actually never learns how to self-regulate under pressure. And that was something that I had to learn as well. I became over-reliant on these external substances. And so for us women, this is really important too, because nervous system health and hormonal health are not separate conversations. They're actually the same conversation. It's just using different language. And our nervous system and hormones are in constant dialogue with each other. And this is something that I really had to learn. I've been sober now for a bit, but especially over the last 2 years, I've really had to take a look at my nervous system because I don't know, perimenopause, anyone, or menopause. I think everyone on this call is in some pause, right, of the cycle. And so like really getting clear on my hormones, but then also I started having things like my adrenals and really trying to understand my adrenal glands and my thyroid. And because I do take my work so seriously and how is this affecting my body? And I still to this day can get very caught up in, again, just like that video, I can get very caught up in the like overextending myself and the fear and wanting to perform and wanting to be good. And especially all of us on here who are entrepreneurs, balancing that drive with also self-care is such an important thing. But if I'm not rooted in my natural being and my natural state, I'll never be able to really tend to that fully. And so the hypothalamus is in the brain is the bridge, and you might hear about like the HPA loop that they a lot of times talk about. And so this is just how it's always in communication, and it does regulate stress, it regulates the hormones, and it also responds directly to alcohol. So if we're messing with that part of the brain, it's misfiring and sending the incorrect signals to the body. And so when our nervous system is dysregulated, our cortisol goes up, our progesterone, which I'm learning a lot about these last few years, what an important hormone, gets suppressed. Our estrogen becomes way more volatile, and then our blood sugar also becomes harder to stabilize. And I think what's really interesting is just to think, the chronic stress plus alcohol equals hormonal chaos. And what's really also interesting about this as well, obviously what it does to the hormones, but you all probably know like alcohol stays in the body for an extended period of time. So you might have one drink and it stays in the body for a period of time, and you might have that blood sugar crash much later, right? Which can then, for some women, we talk about the midlife weight gain and the belly and all of that. And we're just like, oh man, I can't like keep my weight under control, or what's going on? And sometimes that overeating and stuff like that is from the delayed blood sugar crash reaction. And I think our bodies are just such fascinating ecosystems where it's always trying to find that balance, and its timeline might not coordinate with your perceived timeline or my perceived timeline of what that is. So cortisol, as we all know, is the stress hormone, and this is the one that's so sneaky. And for many of us on here, we know that heart disease is one of the number one, killers for women. And it's because of the amount of stress that we carry and that we embody and that we suppress, because we've also been conditioned as a society to take on such massive loads of emotional, mental, spiritual heaviness, and all of the tasks. And, often it's called the invisible labor and things like that, where we're managing everybody's emotions. And like Kendra shared, being a mom, like, there's no additional pay that she's getting for being a mom, right? It's like now that on top of everything else that she's managing. And some of that stuff we don't realize that we're taking on. And so that's why I'm so passionate now too, and really helping women get rooted and grounded in going inward. Because if we're not paying attention to that internal signal, it can lead to disease and, heart failure and things like that. So with cortisol, that really contributes to anxiety, the belly fat storage, like we talked about, our sleep, and it also accelerates perimenopausal symptoms. Now, progesterone is the calming, grounding hormone, and that alcohol reduces progesterone, and especially for women over 35, because that's typically where perimenopausal symptoms start to really present themselves, midlife transitions. And progesterone is essential for, feeling calm, getting our sleep, the anxiety regulation, and feeling emotionally steady. And then estrogen, of course, relates to mood, energy, and brain health. And alcohol increases circulating estrogen. It can, add to worsen PMS symptoms, mood swings, inflammation. So, like joint pain and things like that are signs of inflammation. And it can raise risk for certain cancers, especially breast cancer. So alcohol doesn't necessarily create hormonal problems, but it amplifies existing imbalances. And then again, it's also detaching us from really tuning in and being able to sense, what is it that I'm feeling? And again, with aging and alcohol and why, being sober in midlife and onward is such a power move, as I like to call it, is because I'm sure all of us on here now can relate to this chart. This is our life in a graph of hormones. And you can clearly see here in midlife, things aren't really that fun, right? It's like things are all over the place and we don't know what's going on. And I don't know, one day my memory is sharp as a tack, and the next thing I can't remember someone's name that I literally just talked to 2 minutes ago. So it's like things are all over the place. And honestly, that guy that made a funny video that we started this with, he made a hilarious video. In his Instagram handle, it says he's married to a perimenopausal woman. And some of his videos are also hilarious because one of them, he was mimicking his wife, and one of her requests is to her husband is don't chew. And so even for me with my husband, I'm like, stop breathing. Like, just don't breathe. Don't breathe in my presence. And I feel so bad for him, but I'm like, I can't handle one more thing, right? And so imagine if I was drinking. I don't even know. I wouldn't even be able to tune into that. And so these days, I'm now able to really recognize, like, man, I just need a nap. Like, I just need to go into the bedroom and just chill and unplug for a minute. Again, if I was drinking alcohol, I'd be like overriding that and I'd be so detached and out of touch with my body. And Kendra, I know you said you dealt with a lot of anxiety before you
Yeah.
stopped drinking. Yeah.
And I still do.
Yeah.
It didn't go away. So that's the thing I learned
Yeah.
in therapy, but it's less of
Yeah.
a up and down, and so you don't
Hmm.
have this rebound effect. You're able also to identify it early, so using
Hmm.
strategies to be like, okay, this is too much. So perfect example this week, and kind of my boss is on, so listening in on this, which is great. But it was the week back, tons of meetings back to back. I have learned a lot about myself too, that my social bandwidth is short. I have learned that back-to-back meetings for me is not the best. I struggle instantly. As soon as the day is done, I think I had 5 hours of back-to-back meetings. I had an instant migraine. I felt nauseous because my body got to relax, right? When you guys are thinking about that cortisol. And so then I'm having the time to process. And so now looking back, I don't know, that was Tuesday. I'm thinking, Kendra, you got to build in time. You personally need to build in time to breathe between meetings, because you know what happens at the end of the day when you've expended all of this social capital energy, whatever you want to call it. So I know before, when exactly that video, I used to tell my husband all the time, like, look at these meetings. I mean, I remember counting, like 30 meetings in a week, and it was almost a badge of honor. And maybe for some people that works. For me, I've learned that it doesn't. And so setting myself up to make sure that I don't put myself in a space where I am in need of some type of unnatural release of that anxiety is really important. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. All right, let's get back to this. Oh, I think it's freezing on me. There we go. Okay, so as women age, our margin for recovery shrinks. So, Kendra, that's something that you're realizing, and that's something I'm realizing as well. For myself, sleep becomes non-negotiable. I laugh at myself now because as a kid, my parents made me go to bed by 9 p.m. And my whole life, all I ever wanted to do was stay up late and rebel against this injustice of having to go to bed at 9 p.m. And now I'm in bed by 8:30. So it really, and I eat my vegetables. So it's kind of funny how life becomes full circle. But yeah, sleep is so important and good sleep. I think that's something that's really critical because if we're pumping our body full of alcohol before we go to sleep, don't forget alcohol is also loaded with sugar. So our bodies throughout the evening are trying to filter and process that. So our precious liver, our precious kidneys, all of those things are trying to process all of that while we sleep. So it's busy doing all of that for us, and we're not getting the full rest that we need in addition to everything it's doing with our hormones, nervous system, and what's going on in our brains. So our nervous system really becomes the foundation for everything. Meaning as we're going through these life transitions, having a healthy nervous system. Oops, sorry, it's going backwards on me here. So alcohol slows muscle recovery, it impairs protein synthesis, it increases inflammation, it worsens our joint pain, disrupts our sleep architecture, and sobriety supports muscle preservation, metabolic health, bone density, cognitive clarity, and our emotional steadiness. And so alcohol isn't necessarily a bad habit. It's also socially normalized disassociation. And so I was just suggesting perhaps asking a question of why disconnecting from your body and boundaries, your truth is serving you. So for me, it's like, what would, I just invite you all to wonder what would happen if all women were really embodied rather than disconnected. And my word for 2026 is revolution. And so I'm like, just imagine if all of us women were so deeply connected to our bodies and not distracted by all of the insanity, in addition to putting chemicals in our body that don't necessarily serve us. Like, what would happen, Like we take over, we'd crush it, and that's where that's my why behind a lot of what I do is to create that power for women and to help all of us really rise up. So now we're going to talk about how not drinking supports our nervous system regulation because it doesn't just affect the Friday night, right? It affects Monday's decisions, Wednesday's patience, and baseline anxiety all week. And I really like, Kendra, what you said too, because I think almost every woman I talk to nowadays deals with some level of anxiety. And it's like, can we lessen it? And then also, can we find ways that we can actually self-soothe and manage it versus going to that external substance? So without alcohol, our baseline cortisol lowers, our sleep quality improves, our emotional range returns, and that also includes the discomfort. The vagus nerve actually gets stronger. So remember, that's like the brake pedal. So that really helps regulate things a little bit better for us. And our bodies actually relearn how to come back to be calm on its own. And so one of the things I've really learned in sobriety is that you feel everything. And so when I was numbing out a lot of the time, I was so connected to like happiness, like I just wanted to feel good or just not feel stressed. And now I do. I feel the full range of emotions, but I also am much more resilient as a result. And then, I know that these emotions will pass. And so when things are scary or they are disappointing or they are hurtful or they are uncomfortable, I know how to be with it versus, oh my God, I have to get out of this feeling. Like I can't stand this feeling. I need to get away from it. It's like, okay, how can I regulate this and how can I manage my feelings?
And to piggyback
Yeah.
on that too, is that not only are you able to bounce back quicker, but that means whatever you're feeling, you're not delaying that. And that's also something I learned in therapy is that you're delaying maybe for weeks at a time that feeling you had, that awkward conversation or something didn't go well, you didn't get the job. Instead of you being sad for a day or anxious for a day, you just expanded it to weeks upon weeks. And so that's something that I personally have had to get okay with. but knowing that, okay, it's quicker than I can handle it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you shared that, because also one of the things for me this year, I'm really focusing on my throat chakra. So as Amy knows, some of you on this call know, my throat had a rough year in 2025. And I really had to take a look at, what am I suppressing? And what am I not speaking power to? And this idea of like playing nice, right? So like I suppress things in the sense of like I can feel things very strongly, but I question, what do I say about this in this moment, or how do I manage this? And this has been one of the gifts for me in sobriety, because obviously, for someone like me who drank in excess, um, no longer drinking, I didn't wake up the next day and was like, oh, now I'm this like empowered, amazing woman who can handle life on life's terms, and I know exactly what to do and exactly what to say. Like I'm still on the court, I'm still learning every day, how to be the best version of myself and how to connect with myself. So a lot of what Kendra and I are sharing today, like we're on the court with all of you learning this too as we go. And so for me, it's like, oh, I need to speak up, and in those moments speak up, because sometimes I'd sit with things for a period of time and really try to figure out, like this slide, I put on here says, like really understanding the discernment between this is hard and this is wrong, and being able to figure that out in real time. So for me, it's shortened, right? I used to carry resentments for years. Now it's like maybe a couple weeks, and then I can like figure out, what that situation and what really happened there. And then what I also really love is the ability to really meet ourselves. So one of the things I struggled with, and Kendra, you said imposter syndrome as well. Like I didn't know totally like who I was and how I wanted to show up. And something I've gotten actually from many people in the dental industry this last year or so is like, dang, Brandi, you're really speaking up. You're really coming out. And it's because it's a gift of me not drinking, because I'm finally figuring out like who I am, what I want to say, and having the confidence, like the true confidence, to show up in these uncomfortable spaces, because I was borrowing confidence from alcohol. It wasn't really mine. And so I didn't have like the muscles. I say it's like going to the gym. I didn't really have the muscles to be who I really wanted to be. And having more of that emotional bandwidth, and, even feeling bored without panic. I actually look forward to downtime quite a bit now, and I'm better when I have those moments of stillness, where in the past it would be like, oh, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, like something terrible is going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and Kendra, you pointed to this too. Sobriety doesn't necessarily make your life easier, it just makes us more resilient. So, you become harder to hijack, you become less reactive, you become more boundaried and more present in rooms that matter. And that's been something that's been such a huge gift, because life is going to continue to life and throw curveballs and do what it does. And so, again, it's not this magic wand that all of a sudden things get better. It's just, it becomes more manageable. So emotional well-being and leadership clarity, and this is something that we're really passionate about, and something I'm so grateful that DEW is having this conversation, because DEW is all about nurturing really resilient, incredible women leaders in the dental industry. And to me, this is the kind of work that is such a foundation for being a strong leader. And to me, leadership is in life and in work, right? So Kendra, you point exactly to it. You feel the emotions faster, but they also pass faster. We're no longer numbing ourselves, and we're able to set our boundaries. Our no's get cleaner and our yes get truer. I talk a lot about boundaries, and I don't know, maybe by a show of virtual hands on here or something, like how many of you have violated a boundary that you set because you were drinking at the time, right? Or buzzing or something like that. I know that I have, or I've agreed to things or have said things that, later I would regret. And you don't have to be an alcoholic to have these moments. You could just have a little drink in you, and all of a sudden those boundaries get really loose. So, emotional regulation is leadership. And this is something to think about too, that people really feel our nervous systems before they ever actually hear our words. And again, show of hands, like how many of you just feel someone's energy and you're either drawn to them or repelled by them, right? And a lot of that is nervous system stuff. Like we are energetic beings. And so if somebody's really, dysregulated, we can pick up on that, right? And especially once you get regulated or more regulated, you can pick up on that energy when you're around other people. And a lot of times we don't realize that we're hanging around with such dysregulated people.
Yeah.
When we are. And we're just sharing that energy back and forth, and we wonder why we're so anxious all the time. And I would say too, in the dental industry, something that I hear a lot also is don't forget as women, being caretakers, and especially if you're doctors working chairside or you're interacting with patients all of the time, hygienists, assistants, front office, you're picking up their energy too. And patients aren't always, a ball of fun, right? They're coming in with their anxiety. A lot of people deal with dental anxiety, right? And so if you're picking up on that and you are absorbing that, right, and you're dysregulated as well, it's going to compound over time. So just some leadership ROI of sobriety. We get to make faster decisions, right? So like Kendra pointed to, no next day regret spiral, better hiring choices. You can read people, you can read rooms more accurately, the cleaner boundaries, less tolerance for dysfunction, the high functioning, people normalize, no lost days to hangovers disguised as I'm just tired, or worn down. So how to self-assess your relationship with alcohol? These are just some questions you can ask. And, these aren't diagnostic questions. These are just leadership questions. So if you're using alcohol to tolerate your life instead of celebrate it, it's not a moral failing at all. It's a nervous system signal. So something just to consider is, really focusing on your nervous system and how are you feeling internally and what is your relationship to alcohol? So, are you using it as something to help you feel better? Or is it something that you just use occasionally for celebratory stuff? What part of you gets quieter when you drink? And really, what kind of signals are you overriding? What are you ignoring? And if alcohol did disappear, what would you need to learn or how to feel? And then do you feel more anxious or moody the days following your drinking? So I'm really passionate about self-inventories and audits and just, doing some reflection exercises to see how you feel afterwards, days after. And again, it doesn't have to be the very next day. It could be several days after because it's still, your nervous system is still rebounding from all of that.
Yeah. And one thing to mention too, one of my favorite books I first read, called This Naked Mind and
Yes.
and Send Everything. I mean, literally helped me so much. She mentions there's this time where, you drank to celebrate, you drank at dinner, you drank, and then you don't realize when there's that subtle shift that you're using it for relief, that you're using it for anxiety. And it can take weeks or years and then it clicks. And so that's why I think, Brandi, this is perfect. And occasionally, if you continue to drink, again, no judgment, just take inventory of why you're doing what you're doing, because it can change without you really being aware.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And experiment, and Carla and Anne came to us with, because it is dry January. And a lot of people experiment in dry January and then they realize, man, I feel a lot better. But see what it's like. If you were to not drink, it's a really great indicator to see how you feel. Are you craving it or are you all of a sudden feeling way more anxious than you ever felt before? If you stop for a month, and that's a really great indicator too, because that means, oh my gosh, my baseline is completely dysregulated, right? So that's something that you can check in on yourself. So again, you do not need to hit rock bottom. No one's calling you an alcoholic, right? If you decide to quit drinking, it's really a leadership question. And is this serving your leadership? And higher performers don't wait for crisis, right? You guys, we want to optimize who we are and show up as our best selves. And to me, I think sobriety is a leadership practice. And sobriety, not to think of it as restriction, it's presence, it's capacity, it's leading without anesthesia, it's choosing to feel everything so you can lead through anything. It really does create such enormous strength at your core. And there's me and Kendra here we are at Dykema, and we want to share a little bit too about navigating conferences. And this is her and I at Dykema living our best life as sober people. and probably one of the most alcohol-soaked events of the year. So, but we were sober and we crushed it. And I also wanted to include this because this was a huge win for us. We also belong to Sober Life Rocks, which Laura Nelson and Margie Schaller started, I think, a few years ago, thanks to Dew. It all was birthed at the Dew retreat a few years ago. And I took it upon myself. It was going to be my life's mission to get a non-alcoholic menu at Dykema. And I figured if Dykema can do it, anyone can, being one of the biggest events of the year. And one of the things that sobriety has also given me is extra time and a whole lot of perseverance. And I would not take no for an answer. And so we worked really, really hard. And we did get the non-alcoholic menu at Dykema, which was a huge win.
And they sold out,
They
right?
sold out. Yeah, they ran out of non-alcoholic beers. And so many people were like, oh my God, they have non-alcoholic beers. And these cocktails people really enjoyed. And so that was just really, really cool because one of the biggest things that we've been recognizing is a lot of people would rather not drink at events, so they just don't have a lot of options. And so we wanted to make these options available to them and just see how it went. And so we were very, very excited about that, which was very cool. So here are some sober power moves for event navigation. So I'm super happy because Rachel, yep, you put the link to Sober Life Rocks in the menu. Thank you so much. Yeah, everyone join Sober Life Rocks. You can connect with other sober homies that are out there for events. That's actually how Kendra and I got connected, which was super cool. And Amy, we connected over sobriety at events as well. And it just really deepened our relationships. But these are just some simple tips, and Kendra, you can share as well. But one of the things that I think is really, really helpful is before the event, identify 3 to 5 people that you actually want to connect with and not just network with everyone. So this is a way where you can come in with intentionality. I'm seeing everywhere on LinkedIn this year, a lot of women are choosing intentionality this year, which I think is awesome. So reach out to some people. Anytime I know Kendra's going to be at an event or Amy's going to be at an event, I'm like, I instantly feel good. If Laura Nelson's at an event, I instantly feel good. I know that I'm going to connect with them because they're like my sober go-to people. So I have them in my back pocket and I know that I can connect with them and they're going to help me navigate if I'm feeling off or a little dysregulated. During cocktail hour, hold the sparkling water in like a rocks glass. No one usually asks, and if they do, you just say, I'm good with this. When somebody pushes, you can say, I'm an early riser or I don't drink. One of the things I really want to encourage people to know is that, especially women, like you do not need to explain shit to anybody. Like if you're not drinking, who cares? And if they want to say you're pregnant or they want to ask like ridiculous questions about you, I probably can't say on this video what I would actually say in real life, but I think I'm at a stage in my life that I'm like, don't mess. But you don't owe anyone an excuse. You don't owe anyone I'm not drinking, bro. Like, back off,
Yeah.
right?
And one of those things I want to say is this was my biggest fear, which is why I was so quiet for so long, is that people would say, okay, well, why aren't you drinking? Or what's going on? Or, oh, you're a raging alcoholic and blah, blah. And there was a lot of shame behind this. And Brandi was there for my first conference. So thank you. I was very nervous. By the way, you'll learn when you do things alcohol-free first time, there's a lot of anxiety around it. And so nobody cared. I worried so much and nobody cared. In 2026, it's a lot different than it was in 2010, 2000s. A lot more people are living alcohol free. And like you said, you don't owe anyone anything. And where I found where people actually push a little more are usually the drunk ones. They don't remember anyways. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, they're already drunk. And then you can always like flip the script, be like, why are you drinking so much? You got a problem with alcohol?
Yeah.
Just call them out. And so, but yeah, they usually forget. And some of those guys that are aggressive, all you gotta do is just poke their little ego and they collapse. So don't worry about it. And then energy management. This is a big thing for me, is leave events early without the guilt. So a lot of times I'll look at the schedule and I'll make up a time that I plan on leaving. because, truly our presence is a gift. It's not always the attendance at the after party. Some of these events, man, they go so late. It's so crazy.
2
It's so
a.m., 4
silly.
a.m.
Yeah, and you pay thousands of dollars to go to these things. And to me, it's like, this is not worth my energy. And then again, the dysregulation, right? That stuff lasts. I have sleep hangovers now, right? Instead of alcohol. So if I don't get my proper sleep, like that can wreck me for a few days after. So leave early. It's totally okay. And sadly, no one actually will recognize that you're missing. You can go. As important as you think you are. And yeah, the real advantage is that you remember everything. You remember the conversations. You make better decisions about who to follow up with. You're way more intentional. You wake up clear. You have more time. Your nervous system and your hormones are more at baseline. And there are so many people in Sober Life Rocks now. So there is bound to be somebody at one of the events. So if you join, you'll be able to find somebody that you can connect with if you need a sober homie. That's
And
always so
I
important.
have another tip too, because I didn't even know that this was an option, and I learned it from Sober Life.
Yeah.
My trigger was actually being alone, less so
Mhm.
than celebrating. So I didn't think about this, by the way, until I became alcohol free. Hotel rooms with preloaded alcohol.
Oh,
Yeah. And so you can ask before you get there or when you're there, and they move very quickly to remove the alcohol, especially, by the way, I'm not a Vegas girl, but with the little thing and they charge you a gazillion dollars, they'll come and they'll take it out for you. So that's just a good tip. I didn't even cross my mind that you could do. So
yeah. Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah, so we talked about a lot today, but it wasn't necessarily about alcohol. It's what becomes possible when you stop borrowing your confidence, stop overriding your body's signals, and start leading from a regulated nervous system. And we believe wholeheartedly that that truly is your power move, and really invite you to explore that in 2026 if you're interested. And this is me and Kendra. So if you'd like to follow us and hang out with us on the World Wide Web, this is where you can find us. And I'm really happy that her and I matched in these photos because we look super cute with
I
this
know, I
dog.
was so proud.
Yeah, I know. So Kendra's obviously on LinkedIn and IG, and I have 18,000 links because I, have so much time now that I'm sober. I'm so creating so many things. So you can find me there if you decide to scan the QR code. And thank you all so much for being with us on this conversation. I know it's not always easy to hear. If this is stuff's coming up for you, I know Kendra's available to talk with you about it. I know my door is always open if you ever want to slide into my DMs and have a conversation about this privately. Super open to it. It's like one of my passions in life's work. And I know Amy's also very open to it as well. I'll speak on her behalf, but we're here to support you in every step of the way, whatever your choices are, even if you want to experiment and just see what it's like for you as you navigate being the most powerful, rooted, and grounded woman you can be. And thank you so much.